You don't move to Italy to marry a mob boss. You move to Italy because you're 28 and your life back home has the structural integrity of wet tissue paper. You've got a marketing degree that 400,000 other people also got that year. A lease on an apartment in Columbus, Ohio that smells like the previous tenant's regrets, and a job at a digital agency where your title is senior content strategist and your actual job is writing captions for a mattress company's Instagram page. Your longest relationship lasted 14 months and ended when he said he needed to find himself, and you said fine, and meant it, which probably says more about the relationship than anything else. Your mom asks what the 5-year plan is. You don't have a 5-year plan. You have a passport you got 3 years ago that's been used exactly once for a work trip to Toronto, which you're not sure counts. The opportunity, if you can call it that, arrives as a freelance contract from a fashion media company that needs someone on the ground in Milan for 6 months to cover the Italian luxury market. The pay is decent. The timeline is fixed. The plan is simple. Go to Milan. Write about handbags and heritage brands. Come home with a better portfolio and maybe some shoes. 6 months.
In, out, done.
You are not looking for anything complicated because complicated is a word for people who have the emotional bandwidth for it, and you've been running on empty since the mattress captions. You land in Milan on a Tuesday in March with a suitcase that's mostly blazers, a laptop bag, and the low-grade anxiety of a woman who has watched too many European romance films and is now suspicious of her own expectations. Milan is not what the films prepared you for. It is not soft. It is not charming in the way Paris is charming or Rome is chaotic. Milan is precise. It is a city of intention. The Fashion Week crowds move like they've been choreographed. The architecture is severe and beautiful. The coffee is extraordinary and the portions are insulting and nobody apologizes for either. You feel underdressed immediately and permanently. You find an apartment in Brera. 1 bedroom, high ceilings, a window that faces a courtyard with a fig tree that is either dead or dramatically dormant. You never figure out which. The rent is 1,800 euros a month. Your company covers it. You are grateful. The kitchen has a stovetop espresso maker that takes 3 attempts to operate correctly and becomes the organizing principle of your mornings. You start working. Fashion houses. Showrooms. Archive visits. Interviews with designers who speak to you in Italian at normal speed, and then slower, and then with hand gestures before someone finds a translator. You are building something. It doesn't feel like your life yet, but it feels like the beginning of something that might be. 6 weeks in, your colleague Marco, a photographer you've been working with who treats every meal like a religious ceremony, invites you to dinner at a private home in the Navigli district. Someone's villa. A birthday celebration for someone whose name Marco says once and then doesn't repeat. The name is Enzo Ricci. The villa is behind a gate. Inside the gate is a courtyard. Inside the courtyard is a world. White linen. Candles. Food arriving in waves. 40 or so people who all seem to know each other with an intimacy that has been earned over decades. The men wear suits that fit the way suits fit in paintings. The women move through the room like they own the air in it. You are standing at the edge of all of it, holding a glass of Barolo you don't deserve, when a man sits down next to you on the stone bench by the fountain and says in English, without introduction, "You look like someone who's been told this is a party, but suspects it's something else." You look at him. He is not what you expected from the name that had mass. He is not large. He is not loud. He is somewhere in his early 40s, dark hair going silver at the temples, a face that has been through weather and come out structured on the other side. He holds his wine loosely, like a man comfortable with things that have value. His eyes are the specific dark brown of something that has decided to pay attention to you. You say, "I think the correct word might be gathering." He says, "My name is Enzo." You give yours. He repeats it once, slowly, like he's placing it somewhere careful. You talk for 2 hours. You don't notice 2 hours passing. He asks about Ohio with the genuine curiosity of a man who has no agenda about Ohio. He asks about your work. He listens the way people listen when they're actually building a picture of you, not just waiting for their turn. When you ask what he does, he says, "I manage things that belong to my family." You ask what kind of things. He says, "Old things. Things my grandfather started that I inherited the responsibility for." You think he means real estate. Manufacturing maybe. Something old Milanese money. You are wrong. But you don't know that yet.
He calls the next day.
He takes you to lunch at a restaurant in Porta Venezia where the owner comes out personally to seat you and the menu is not handed over. The food simply arrives, and it is the best thing you have eaten in your life or possibly anyone's life. You say this. He looks pleased in the restrained way of a man who is pleased often enough that he doesn't need to perform it. He takes you to dinner on Thursday, to the opera on Saturday, to Lake Como on a Sunday that starts as a drive and becomes a full day, and then an evening, and then you're riding back to Milan at midnight with the window down, and his hand not touching yours, but close enough that the proximity has its own grammar. He is patient. That's the word. Patient the way a man is patient who knows what he wants and has learned that urgency is for people who aren't sure. He has 2 phones. You notice this around week 3. One is always in his pocket. One sits on the table and rings, and he looks at it and sometimes answers and steps away and speaks in Italian too low for you to follow. Sometimes he doesn't answer, and the ringing stops and you watch something move through his face that he puts away before it arrives. You ask Marco. Marco is the one who brought you to the villa. Marco is also, you realize, a man who has known Enzo for 20 years and has feelings about the current situation. You ask Marco what Enzo does. Exactly. Really? Marco lights a cigarette, takes a long drag, looks at you with the expression of a man who is choosing between 2 versions of the truth and picking the one he can live with. He says his grandfather was connected during the Reconstruction period. After the war, there was an organization. You understand what I mean by organization. You say, I understand what you mean. Marco says, Enzo's father grew it, diversified, made it less visible, more legitimate on the surface, more serious underneath. He pauses. Enzo is not his father. He is quieter, more careful, but the thing is still the thing. You ask what thing specifically. Marco says, construction contracts that always go to the same company. Port logistics in Genoa and Gioia Tauro that move things customs never inspects. Cocaine from Calabria that gets cut and distributed through networks that stretch to Germany and the Netherlands. Heroin that comes through Turkey and lands in warehouses his family has owned since the 60s.
He stops,
Lights another cigarette from the one still burning. And then there is the other business, the enforcement business. When someone doesn't pay, when someone talks, when someone decides they want what belongs to the family. He says, 3 men who worked for his cousin disappeared in 2019. There was a dispute over territory in the south. The men were found later,
2 of them,
in a field outside Reggio Calabria. The 3rd has never been found. His wife still puts food on his plate at dinner. Every night, a full plate. She has a 6-year-old daughter who thinks her father is working in Germany. He says this the way someone reads a weather report. You go home. You sit in the apartment in Brera. The fig tree in the courtyard is still either dead or dormant. The espresso maker is on the counter. His last text is on your phone. A restaurant recommendation for tomorrow. A question mark at the end. You should not answer it. You know what he is now.
cocaine, heroin.
Men in fields. A 6-year-old eating dinner across from a plate no one will touch. You are a woman with a journalism-adjacent career and a functional moral compass and a mother in Ohio who raised you to make sensible choices. You answer the text. This is the decision that determines the next 7 years of your life, and you make it with the same energy you'd use to choose a Netflix show. He tells you himself 3 weeks later. You're at his apartment. Not the villa. A private apartment in Porta Nuova, high floor, the kind of clean that requires someone to maintain it daily. He cooks. He is an extraordinary cook. There is something profoundly disorienting about watching a man responsible for cocaine distribution across 3 countries make handmade pappardelle with the focus and care of someone for whom this is devotion. He sets the bowl in front of you.
He sits.
He pours wine. He says, I think you know what I am. You say, Marco told me. He nods. He doesn't flinch. He says, Marco told you what Marco knows. I want you to know what I know. He tells you about his grandfather, who built the organization in Turin in the 40s from genuine nothing. rubble and starvation, and the understanding that in a country rebuilding itself, someone always controls the contracts, and the man who controls the contracts controls the food, and the man who controls the food controls everything. His grandfather fed a neighborhood, then a district, then a city's worth of loyalty that turned into something permanent. He tells you about his father, who moved operations south, connected with families in Calabria and Sicily, and turned a regional network into an international supply chain. Cocaine from South America through the port of Gioia Tauro. Heroin through Turkish networks into Genoa. Weapons. Not retail. Wholesale. Shipments that went to places Enzo names and you recognize from headlines, and the recognition makes your stomach contract because you're sitting in a beautiful kitchen eating beautiful pasta, and the man who made it is describing an arms pipeline that has contributed to wars you've read about on your phone while waiting for coffee. He tells you about his cousin Luca, and here his voice changes. Not louder. Tighter. Like a wire being tuned to a frequency that hurts. He says Luca handles enforcement, and that the word enforcement contains more rooms than you want to walk through. He says Luca has done things that Enzo has spent years trying to contain, and that containment is not the same as control, and that the difference between those two words has cost lives. He says, there is a man named Salvatore Greco in Calabria who believes the port of Gioia Tauro belongs to him. He has been taking our routes for 2 years, intercepting shipments, turning our dock workers. Last spring, one of my longest-serving men, Bruno Ferretti, was taken from his home at 3 a.m. in front of his wife. His wife heard him calling her name from the car. She ran into the street in her nightgown. She watched the car turn the corner. 4 days later, Bruno was found in a canal outside Reggio Calabria. They had bound his hands with wire, so tight the coroner said the bone was visible. They had removed his tongue. Bruno had 4 grandchildren. The youngest is 3. She asks where Nano is every Sunday. He says this looking at his hands. The same hands that made the pasta. The same hands that will touch your face later tonight if you stay at this table. You are aware of this. Every nerve in your body is aware of this. He says, I paid for the funeral. I set up a trust for the grandchildren. I sat with his wife and I held her hand and she looked at me and said, you did this. Not the men who took him. You. Because he worked for you. Because your name was on him like a target. And she was right. He looks at you across the table and says, I am not asking you to approve of what I am. I am asking you to decide if you can be in the same room with it. You sit with that for a long time. The pasta is cold. You eat it anyway because it's extraordinary and because you need something to do with your hands while your brain tries to process the geometry of what you're being asked. You say, why are you telling me this? He says, because you're not someone I can lie to, and I don't want to. You stay. You stay at the table. You stay the night. You stay for what comes after. This is not a decision you make once. You make it every morning when you wake up and every night when you don't leave. The leaving is always available. You choose the staying. You don't fully understand why. You understand that not understanding why is part of the problem and part of the answer. You date for 8 months. During those 8 months, you learn things about a world that exists inside the visible world the way a second skeleton would exist inside a body. You learn that there are restaurants in Milan where no reservation is needed because the table is always there. You learn that there are police officials who nod at Enzo in ways that are not about respect and not about fear, but about an arrangement so old it has become architecture. You learn that Enzo owns 14 legitimate businesses, including 2 construction firms, a logistics company, a chain of laundromats that wash more money than clothing, and a vineyard in Tuscany that actually produces excellent wine, and also serves as the meeting point for quarterly sit-downs with families from Palermo to Naples. You learn what a sit-down looks like. Not from inside. From the hallway. You're at the vineyard for a weekend when cars start arriving on a Saturday morning. Black. Identical. The men who step out of them move with a specific weight, like they're carrying something invisible that has mass. You count 11 men. Enzo asks you to stay in the bedroom upstairs. You do. You hear nothing through the floor. The house is old, and the walls are thick, and whatever is being decided below you is being decided in the kind of silence that costs. When they leave, you come downstairs. The table has 12 glasses. One is broken. There is a stain on the tablecloth that is either wine or not wine, and you don't look closely enough to determine which, because you've learned that there are things you examine and things you walk past, and knowing the difference is how you survive in this house. You learn about Luca. Not from Enzo. From watching. Luca visits the apartment twice during those 8 months. The first time, he sits in the living room and talks to Enzo in rapid Italian while you're in the kitchen, and his voice has the flat quality of a man who experiences other people as logistics. When he leaves, he looks at you and says in English, "You're still here." Not a question, an observation, like he's checking a variable. The second time he visits, he arrives at midnight. You hear the door. You hear voices. You walk to the hallway in a t-shirt and bare feet, and you see Luca standing in the foyer, and his shirt is wrong. The color is wrong. There is something on his sleeves that is dark and wet, and his hands are the same, and he's talking to Enzo in a voice that is not panicked but operational, the voice of a man reporting a completed task, and Enzo's face is doing something you've never seen before. It's the computation but broken. The machine running a program it didn't write. Enzo sees you. He says, "Go back to bed." You don't go back to bed. You stand there. Luca looks at you. His eyes are empty in a way that doesn't mean he feels nothing. It means he has organized what he feels into a room he locked a long time ago. He turns back to Enzo. He says something in Italian that contains the word finito and another word you don't know, and Enzo grabs him by the collar. Physically grabs him. Luca doesn't react. He stands there being held by a man in his own foyer at midnight with someone else's blood drying on his shirt, and he waits. Patient. Like a dog who has brought something dead to the door and doesn't understand the revulsion. Enzo lets go. Luca leaves. The door closes. Enzo stands in the foyer for a long time. Then he goes to the kitchen sink and washes his hands even though nothing is on them. He washes them for 4 minutes. You watch. You don't speak. When he's done, he turns off the water and puts both hands on the edge of the sink and stands there, and his back is to you, and you can see the muscles in his shoulders, and they're holding something that has weight. You say, "Who?" He says, "A man in Genoa who is talking to prosecutors." You say, "Is he dead?" He says, "I didn't order it." You say, "But he's dead." He says, "Nothing." You go back to bed. You lie in the dark. The sheets smell like the laundry service and the detergent they use, and you think about that smell, and you think about the laundromats Enzo owns, and you think about what gets cleaned in those machines and what doesn't, and your mind does a thing where it tries to sort what you know into categories of acceptable and unacceptable, and the categories won't hold, because you're lying in a bed paid for by cocaine money and heroin money and construction fraud. And the disappearance of men whose children ask about them at dinner, and you are choosing to be here. Every minute you stay is a choice. The door is right there. You don't leave. Your mother would say the devil is charming. Your mother would say evil doesn't announce itself. Your mother would say a lot of things, and all of them would be true, and none of them would account for the fact that this man reads poetry in Italian to himself before bed, and makes pasta by hand, and held Bruno's widow's hand, and accepted the accusation, and carried it, and that the world he operates in is not a world he invented, but a world he was born into the way someone is born into a country, or a language, or a body, and the leaving of it is not as simple as walking through a door. You tell yourself this. You don't know if it's wisdom or the beginning of the kind of reasoning that lets you live with anything. You fly home to Ohio for Christmas. You tell your mother you're seeing someone. She asks what he does. You say family business. She asks what kind. You say logistics and construction. You manage a straight face. It costs you something you don't get back. He asks you to marry him in January. In the apartment in Porta Nuova. You're on the couch. It's raining. He turns to you and says, "I would like you to be my wife." Not a performance. Not a restaurant. Just that. Direct and certain the way all of his important decisions are. You say yes before he finishes the sentence. He produces a ring. He had it made 6 weeks ago. He says he has been certain since the stone bench at the birthday party. You put it on, and it fits because of course it does. This man plans everything, including the things that are supposed to be spontaneous. Your mother does not take it well. The call lasts 45 minutes and covers topics including God, Italy, your safety, your grandmother who lit candles, and the specific brand of stubbornness she believes you inherited from your father. You say you love him. She says love is not a bulletproof vest. You don't have an answer for that because she's right and you know it, and you marry him anyway. The wedding is in a villa outside Florence. His family's choice. The guest list has 2 categories: people you know and people you understand you will never be safe asking about. His family arrives like weather. The uncles, the cousins, the men who stand at the edges of rooms with their hands visible and their eyes on the doors. The women who have been married into this world for decades and carry it in their posture and their silence and the specific way they touch their husband's arms, a touch that says, I am here and I know and I am still here. Your family arrives from Ohio. Your mother, who prayed the entire flight, meets Enzo's mother, a woman named Juliana who is 70 and holds a room the way a cathedral holds silence. They sit together at dinner. Your mother doesn't speak Italian. Juliana doesn't speak English. They communicate through food and nodding and the pointing at you and making the same face, and somewhere in that exchange of friendship is established that neither of them expected and both of them need. Your dad shakes Enzo's hand for a long time, says nothing. Enzo holds the shake, says nothing. Your dad says later that Enzo has good hands. He says, you can tell a lot from a man's hands. You almost choke on your wine. The ceremony is in a chapel that is 500 years old. The priest has known Enzo's family for 30 years. He has baptized children and buried men and heard confessions that would hold up in court and never said a word about any of it. This is the church's relationship with families like this.
Proximity.
Silence. The sacraments delivered without questions about how the donations were earned. You look at Enzo across the table at the reception, and he is watching the room the way he always watches rooms, computing, measuring, tracking the doors and the faces, and then he looks at you, and the computation stops, and his face becomes the face of a man who has found the one thing that doesn't require calculation. You memorize this. You put it somewhere safe.
You don't know why yet.
But your body knows. Your body has been keeping score. You move into the house. Magenta District. 5 floors. The lemon tree. The kitchen that requires instruction. Rosa, the housekeeper who has worked for Enzo for 11 years and who treats you with the fierce protectiveness of a woman who has decided you belong here and will enforce that decision against anyone, including you. Pietro, the driver, who on your second week says quietly while opening the car door, if anything ever feels wrong, anything, you call me first, before the police, before anyone, me first. You memorize his number. You understand what before the police means in this house. Police are not protection here. Police are a variable. Some are paid. Some are not. The ones who are paid are predictable. The ones who aren't are dangerous. You learn the house. You learn that the basement has a room with a steel door that Enzo goes into sometimes and comes out of looking like a man who has just finished something heavy. You learn that men arrive at odd hours and sit in the study and leave, and the glasses they used are washed immediately. You learn that there is a safe in the bedroom closet that requires 2 keys and a combination, and contains things you've never asked about, and he's never offered. One night, 3 months into the marriage, you can't sleep. You go downstairs for water. The study door is open. You hear Enzo's voice. You hear another voice. A voice you don't know. The voice is pleading. Not yelling. Pleading. The specific register of a human being who is asking for something they know they won't receive, but the asking is all they have left. You stand in the hallway. The door is open 6 inches. You see the back of Enzo's chair. You see a man on the other side of the desk. He is sitting. His hands are on the desk. His fingers are spread. One of his fingers is bent at an angle that fingers don't bend. Luca is standing behind him. Luca's hand is on the man's shoulder the way you'd put a hand on a child's shoulder. Gentle. The gentleness is the worst part. The man is saying a name. Over and over. His daughter's name. He's saying please. He's saying he'll pay. He's saying he didn't know. He's saying the name again. The daughter's name. Julia.
Please.
Julia. Enzo speaks. His voice is the same voice that reads poetry before bed. The same pitch. The same cadence. He says, you had 3 chances. Each one was more than you deserved. What happens now is not cruelty. It's arithmetic. Luca's other hand moves. You see something metal. You don't see what happens next because you step back from the door and your bare foot hits the wall, and there is a sound that is small in the hallway and enormous in the silence, and Enzo says, "Rosa?" And you say nothing and you walk upstairs and you get into bed, and you pull the covers up and you stare at the ceiling for 4 hours. In the morning, Enzo is in the kitchen.
Coffee.
The newspaper. Normal. He looks at you, and his eyes have a question in them, and you answer it by pouring coffee and sitting down and saying nothing. And this is how you and your husband establish the protocol that will govern your marriage. The silence. The not asking. The walking past the stain on the tablecloth without looking closely enough to know what it is. You tell yourself you didn't see anything. You tell yourself the man is fine. You tell yourself the finger was already like that. You tell yourself whatever you need to tell yourself to sit at this table and drink this coffee and be the wife of this man in this house with the lemon tree and the safe in the closet and the room in the basement with the steel door. The devil is charming. Your mother was right. But your mother never sat across from the devil while he poured her coffee and asked about her morning and looked at her with eyes that held both tenderness and the capacity for things that would make tenderness impossible if she let herself think about them. You don't let yourself think about them. This is how it works. This is how all of them do it.
The wives.
The women who move through rooms with that specific posture. They don't not know. They know, and they build a house inside the knowing, and they furnish it with silence, and they live there, and some of them are happy and all of them are complicit, and the line between the two is the line between surviving and not. You are complicit. You know this.
You stay.
Then Sophia is born. There is nothing that prepares you. She arrives in a private clinic in Milan on a November morning when the fog has erased the city and all you can see is white. And then there is a sound. And then there is a person. Sophia. She weighs 3.2 kilograms. She has Enzo's nose and your coloring, and an expression of absolute fury at being removed from somewhere comfortable and placed somewhere cold and bright and loud. They put her in Enzo's arms. You asked them to, because you wanted to see it. And what you see is this. A man who has watched Luca break a man's finger over a desk. A man who has said the word arithmetic while another man wept. A man whose name is on shipments of cocaine and heroin that have destroyed families in numbers he will never calculate because the calculation would require a conscience he has partitioned away from his operating self. That man, holding this child, and his face. His face loses everything. Every wall. Every computation, every room he has ever locked.
Gone.
His eyes fill. He doesn't wipe them. He doesn't speak. He just holds her and breathes, and you watch something fundamental rearrange itself in him, and you know that this child has just become the center of a man who has been centerless his entire life. He whispers to her in Italian. You ask later what he said. He says, "I told her that I will kill anyone who makes her cry." He says this, and then he laughs, and you laugh too, but neither of you is entirely sure how much of it is a joke. Sophia at 5 months grabs your finger during a feeding and doesn't let go for 20 minutes. Your arm goes numb. You don't move. Enzo finds you both in the chair at 4 a.m. and covers you with a blanket and stands in the doorway and doesn't move for a long time. Sophia at 10 months says something that might be Papa, and Enzo is so generous with the interpretation, he calls his mother, and his mother cries, and Rosa cries, and Pietro, who is standing in the kitchen for reasons you don't ask about, also cries, and you buy a cake that Sophia destroys with the precision of a small demolition expert. You develop a ritual. Every night, the same book, an Italian children's story about a fox who builds a house and fills it with things that matter. Enzo reads it. His voice changes when he reads to her. It becomes the voice of a man who has never hurt anything.
Soft.
Unhurried. Like the world outside this room doesn't exist. Sophia falls asleep on page 8 every time. Page 8. He reads pages 9 through 20 to himself in a whisper because stopping a story in the middle feels wrong. Even when the audience is unconscious. You watch from the door. You memorize this. You file it somewhere safe because you already know. Sunday mornings become sacred. Enzo makes breakfast. The good butter. The bread from the bakery 2 blocks down. Sophia in her chair distributing food across every surface within reach with the authority of a small dictator who has never been questioned and doesn't intend to start accepting questions now.
You eat together.
You clean together. You walk to the park. Sophia points at pigeons and says a word that means everything. Enzo carries her on his shoulders and she grabs his hair, and he pretends it hurts, and she laughs. That laugh.
Surprised.
Like happiness arrived, and she has to deal with it. You are inside a life. It fits. You forget what's underneath it. You let yourself forget. The war beneath the surface breaks through on a Tuesday afternoon. You're in the kitchen with Sophia. Rosa is upstairs. The doorbell rings and you expect Pietro because Pietro comes at 3 p.m. on Tuesdays. You open the door. It is not Pietro. There are two men. You've never seen them. One of them says your name, your first name, like he knows you. The other one is already reaching. Rosa screams from the top of the stairs. The sound is not a word. It's a frequency. The sound human being makes when they see something that the body recognizes before the mind catches up. You grab Sophia. You pull her behind you. Your back hits the wall. The man who reached is now holding your arm, and his grip is not a grip, it is a machine, and the other man is saying something in Italian that you don't understand, but your body understands because your body has been keeping score, and this is what the score was counting toward. They take Sophia.
Not you.
Her. One man holds you against the wall by the throat. Not squeezing.
Holding.
The way you'd hold a door shut. The other man picks up Sophia, and she is screaming, and her scream is a sound you will hear for the rest of your life in rooms that are quiet, and in dreams that aren't dreams, and in the space between sleeping and waking where your brain replays the things it can't file anywhere safe. They leave. The whole thing takes 90 seconds. 90 seconds. Your daughter is in your kitchen, and then she is not in your kitchen, and the door is open, and Rosa is on the stairs, and her face is a color faces shouldn't be, and you are on the floor because your legs stopped working. You call Pietro. Before the police. Before anyone. Him first. The way he told you. His voice when he answers changes the moment he hears yours. He says 3 words. Don't move. Coming. You call Enzo. He answers. You say Sophia's name. You can't say anything else. You say her name, and the way you say it tells him everything because he says, "Where are you?" And you say, "Home." And he says, "Are you hurt?" And you say, "They took her." And the line is silent for 4 seconds. You count them. 4 seconds. In those 4 seconds, you hear something through the phone that you will never be able to describe. The sound of a man's entire operating system shutting down and restarting as something else. Something that doesn't have a name in any language you speak, but that has a name in his world, and the name is the thing that keeps other men awake at night. He says, "Don't call anyone else." The next 6 hours are a country you will never be able to describe to anyone who hasn't been there. You sit in the kitchen. Rosa sits with you. Pietro arrives and makes calls, and his voice on the phone is a voice you've never heard from him, not the driver voice, not the gentle voice, a voice made of iron and urgency. Men arrive. Men you've never seen. They move through the house like weather. They don't speak to you. They speak to each other in a dialect you don't follow, and they leave and more arrive, and the house fills and empties and fills again. Enzo arrives at hour 2. He walks through the door and looks at you, and you see it. The thing behind his face. The thing he keeps in the locked room. It's out. It is standing in your foyer wearing his suit and his shoes and his face, and it is looking at you with his eyes, but the thing behind them is not the man who reads the Fox book. It is the other man, the man who says arithmetic. And for the first time you're glad that man exists because that man is going to find your daughter, and what he does after he finds her is something you no longer have the luxury of judging. He holds you. Once. Briefly. His arms around you, and his chin on your head, and his heartbeat against your face, and it is steady. Completely steady. This terrifies you more than anything. His heart should be racing. His heart is not racing. He has been here before. Not this specific place, but this frequency, this register. The register where things are beyond emotion and inside the machinery of action. He lets go. He makes a call. He speaks for 2 minutes. When he hangs up, he says, "Greco's brother. Massimo." He wants the port back. He wants the Gioia Toro routes restored. He's using Sophia to negotiate. You say, negotiate. He says, he thinks I'll trade territory for her. You say, will you?
He looks at you.
He says, I will trade everything I have for her. And then I will take it back. And then I will take everything he has. And then I will take everything he is. This is not a threat. It is a schedule. Hour 4. A phone rings. Not Enzo's. A phone one of the men brought. A voice. A video. You see Sophia on a screen. She is in a room. Concrete walls. She is sitting on a mattress. She is not crying. She is holding her shoes because someone took them off, and she picked them up because she is 2 years old, and she knows shoes go on feet, and the order of her world has been disrupted, and she is trying to fix it by holding her shoes. You break. Not loudly. The way glass breaks underwater. Everything fractures, but the water holds the pieces in place, so from the outside it still looks whole. Enzo watches the video. His face doesn't move. When it ends, he hands the phone to a man and says something, and the man leaves, and Enzo sits down across from you and says, she will be home by morning. You say, how do you know? He says, because I know what I'm willing to do, and they don't. Not yet. Hour 11. You haven't slept. You're on the couch. Rosa brings tea. You don't drink it. It gets cold. Another cup. Cold. You are making a museum of cold tea on the coffee table. A car arrives. You hear it before you see it. The front door opens. Pietro walks in. Behind him, Luca. Luca is holding Sophia. She is asleep. She is wearing someone else's jacket. Her shoes are still in her hands. Even asleep. Even after whatever happened in whatever room with the concrete walls. She held her shoes. You take her. You hold her against your chest, and her weight is the only real thing in the universe. Her heartbeat against yours. Her breath on your neck. The smell of her hair, which doesn't smell right because she's been somewhere else, but underneath the wrong smell is her smell, and you find it, and you stay there, and you don't move, and you don't speak, and you don't let go. Enzo stands behind you, his hand on your back. You feel it through your shirt. Steady.
Warm.
The hand of a man who has just done something with the other hand that you will never ask about. Luca leaves. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't need to.
His shirt is wrong again.
The same wrongness from that midnight in the foyer a year ago. The dark. The wet. The thing you don't look at directly. You look at it this time. You look directly at Luca's shirt and his hands and the thing on both of them, and you know what it is, and you know where it came from, and you look at it and you feel nothing. Not horror. Not relief. Nothing. And the nothing is the most terrifying thing you have ever felt, because the nothing means you have crossed a line you didn't know existed, and you are on the other side now, and the other side doesn't have a way back. Later you learn. Not from Enzo. From the news. From the absence of news. Massimo Greco and 3 of his men were found in a warehouse in the port of Gioia Tauro. The details are in the police report that will never become a prosecution. The details include things done to human bodies that you read once, and then close the browser, and wash your face, and look in the mirror, and see a woman who is relieved. Who is grateful. Who would do it again. Who would hold the door open for Luca, and hand him the tools and watch. This is what they made you. Not Enzo. Not Luca. The men who took your daughter from your kitchen. They took a woman from Ohio who wrote mattress captions, and they made her into someone who looks at blood on a man's shirt and feels gratitude. You don't forgive yourself for this. You also don't apologize. The months after the kidnapping change everything. The texture. Not the color. The color of the house is the same. Lemon tree. Sunday breakfast. The Fox book. Page 8. But the feel of it under your hands is different. Every room has a question in it now. The kitchen asks, are the locks enough? The bedroom asks, is the safe enough? The nursery asks, is anything enough? Enzo installs systems. Cameras. Men. A rotation of men who sit outside in cars and walk the perimeter and stand at the gate and are always there the way gravity is always there. You learn their names. Marco. Fabio. Sandro. They learn Sophia's routine. They know when she naps. When she eats. When you take her to the park. They know before you go. The route is cleared. The park is checked. Your life has become a production with a security team, and the production is called normalcy, and the effort required to maintain it is exhausting and invisible. You stop working. You don't mean to, but the laptop stays closed. The words don't come. Your editor calls. You say you're taking time. You don't say why. She says take what you need. You need things she can't give. You need to stop seeing concrete walls when you close your eyes. You need Sophia to stop flinching when the doorbell rings. She flinches. For 3 months, she flinches. Then she stops. Children are adaptable. This is something people say as a comfort. It is actually the most devastating thing about children. They adapt to what should be unacceptable. They normalize what should never be normal. Sophia adapts. She stops flinching. She starts sleeping through the night again. She goes back to page 8. She holds her shoes less tightly. You adapt too. This is the thing you don't say out loud. You adapt to living in a house with cameras and men, and a husband who comes home some nights with a face that has been in rooms you don't enter, and a cousin whose shirt is sometimes wrong, and a world that took your daughter and gave her back and will always be capable of taking again. You adapt. You build your own locked room. You furnish it with the things you can't look at. The video on the phone. The concrete walls. Luca's hands. The nothing you felt when you looked at the blood. You put it all in a room and you lock it and you lose the key on purpose and you go downstairs and make breakfast and cut bread and pour coffee and live. This is complicity. This is survival. The line between them is the width of a hair, and you walk it every day like a tightrope artist who doesn't look down because down is where the truth is, and the truth is that you chose this and you would choose it again. Every morning, every night, every page. The betrayal comes from inside. Not Greco. Not the Southern families. Inside. The house. Luca. You learn it the way you learn everything in this world. In pieces. In the wrong order. In the silences between what Enzo says and what he means. Enzo comes home one evening and sits in the kitchen and doesn't eat. He looks at the food Rosa made and doesn't touch it. This has never happened. Not once. In this family, not eating is a confession. You say, "What happened?" He says, "Luca has been talking to someone in Rome." You say, "Talking." He says, "Negotiating." You wait. He tells you, "Luca has been building a separate arrangement with a Roman family, the Ferrara organization, for 6 months, trading information about Enzo's routes, schedules, shipment values. In exchange, Luca has been promised control of the northern operations. Everything above Florence. Enzo's territory. Luca's betrayal is not emotional. It is architectural. He has been building a parallel structure inside Enzo's house using Enzo's materials and Enzo's name and Enzo's trust. The trust is the part that breaks something in Enzo's face that you haven't seen break before. Not the computation.
Deeper.
The thing the computation was built to protect. The part that believed family meant something. That blood was a floor you couldn't fall through. Luca found the trapdoor. Enzo says, he was in the room when Sophia was born. He held her. He said she looked like his mother.
He says this and his voice does something.
A crack.
Hairline.
The kind of crack that precedes the collapse of structures that were supposed to be permanent. You say, "What are you going to do?"
He looks at you.
The look is a question. Not what should I do. He knows what he's going to do. The question is whether you can live in the same house with what he's going to do. It's the same question from the dinner in Porta Nuova. The Pappardelle night. Can you be in the same room with it? You say, he would have gotten Sophia killed. The routes he sold. The information he gave. That's how Massimo knew where we lived. That's how they knew Pietro's schedule. That's how they knew which door. Enzo says nothing, but his eyes confirm it. Luca's betrayal didn't just threaten the business. It opened the door through which 2 men walked into your kitchen and took your daughter. You say, do what you have to do. You say this. You, the woman from Ohio. The woman who wrote mattress captions. The woman whose mother prays. You say it, and you mean it, and the meaning sits in your mouth like a coin, hard and metallic and real. Luca disappears on a Thursday. Not spectacularly. Quietly. The way people disappear in this world. A car that doesn't arrive. A phone that stops ringing. A chair at the family table that stays empty. Juliana, Enzo's mother, asks once. Enzo says Luca has gone away. Juliana looks at her son for a long time. She nods. She doesn't ask again. She has been sitting at this table for 40 years. She knows what gone away means. She has always known. Luca is not found. Not in a field. Not in a canal. Not anywhere. The absence is the message. The families who are considering the Ferrara arrangement reconsider. The routes stabilize. The shipments resume. The machine runs. And somewhere in the locked room inside your head, there is now a new piece of furniture. Not a chair. A hole. A Luca-shaped hole where a man used to be. A man who held your daughter the day she was born and said she looked like his mother, and then sold the information that put her in a concrete room holding her own shoes. You don't grieve Luca. You don't have the right, and you don't have the desire. What you have is the knowledge that you said the words. Do what you have to do. 4 days later, a man was erased. The distance between your words and his absence is not direct. It is not indirect either. It is the distance of complicity. The same distance as the wives with the posture. The same distance as the silence. The same distance as the cold tea and the stain on the tablecloth and the walking past.
You are fully inside it now.
There is no outside. There hasn't been for a long time. Then the state arrives. Not the local police who nod. Not the ones who are paid. The real ones. Guardia di Finanza. Anti-Mafia prosecutors from Palermo. A coordinated operation that lands on a Monday morning like a bomb, made of paperwork. 31 arrests across 4 cities. 2 of the men arrested have been in your house. 1 was at your wedding. 1 held Sofia at a Sunday dinner and bounced her on his knee and made her laugh. You see his face on the news and remember the laugh and the knee and the way Sofia grabbed his nose and he pretended to sneeze. Enzo is not arrested.
Not yet.
He is named as a person of interest. He hires lawyers the way other people hire movers. They arrive in teams. They fill the study. They speak in legal Italian that you don't follow, but the rhythm of it is the rhythm of serious men discussing serious time. The investigation focuses on the drug networks, the cocaine pipeline from Gioia Toro, the heroin distribution through the northern cities, specific shipments, specific dates, specific amounts. 400 kilograms of cocaine seized in a container marked as ceramic tiles. 12 million euros traced through the laundromats to accounts in Switzerland that connect to accounts in Dubai that connect to accounts that don't technically exist, but somehow hold money. The prosecutors have a witness. Not Luca. Luca is gone. Someone else. Someone who was in the room. Someone who sat at the table and drank from one of the 12 glasses and decided that the life expectancy inside the organization was shorter than the sentence for cooperating. Enzo knows who it is. He knows within a day. The name moves through the house like a draft from an open window. You hear it once.
Tadeo.
A man who worked for Enzo's father. A man who came to the house one night with information and asked for protection. Enzo's face when he hears the name is the face of a man who has been standing on a floor he believed was solid and has just heard the crack. He says, I protected his family. I sent them north. I gave him my word. You say, what will happen to him? He says, the prosecutors will put him in a box and he will say everything he knows and everything he knows is enough. You say, no. What will your people do? He looks at you. He says, I gave him my word. You don't know if that means he'll be protected or if the word given has been voided by the betrayal or if words in this world have the same meaning they have in yours. You don't ask again. You are learning. You are always learning. Tadeo is found dead in a safe house in Verona 3 weeks later. Heart attack. The official report says heart attack. He was 44 years old and in good health, but the report says heart attack and nobody contests it because contesting things in this world has its own health risks. Enzo reads the news. He sets the phone down. He goes to Sofia's room. He reads her the Fox book.
She's not there.
She's at school. He reads it to an empty room. You stand in the doorway and watch him read a children's book to a bed with no child in it, and his voice is the soft voice, the unhurried voice, the voice that costs him something, and he reads all 20 pages, and when he's done, he closes the book and sits on the small bed and puts his face in his hands. You sit next to him. You don't speak. You put your hand on his back. You feel the muscles holding the weight. You sit there for a long time in a room that smells like a child's shampoo, and the laundry detergent Rosa uses, and the lemon tree outside the window, and underneath all of it the smell of something ending. The trial begins. It takes 2 years. 2 years of hearings and evidence and legal architecture, and the slow grinding of a system that has decided to notice what it has been ignoring for 30 years. Enzo is indicted in month 4. The charges are association of mafia type, drug trafficking, money laundering, and corruption of public officials. The list is read in a courtroom, and each charge lands like a stone in water, and the ripples reach you in the gallery where you sit with your hands in your lap and your face composed, and your heart doing something it has never done before, which is beating in a rhythm that feels like counting down. Sofia is 4 during the trial. She goes to school. She comes home. She asks about Papa's work. You say Papa has important meetings. You say this with a straight face. The straight face is something you've perfected. You could hold it through an earthquake. You have been holding it through an earthquake for 2 years. Enzo is home during the early proceedings. House arrest. An ankle monitor. The indignity of it does something to him that the indictment didn't. The indictment was expected. The monitor is personal. He is a man who has controlled the movement of goods across an entire country, and now he cannot walk to the bakery for bread. He reads the Fox book every night. Page 8. The rest in a whisper. Sunday mornings with the good butter. Sofia in her chair. The Empress. The pigeons. The laugh that sounds surprised. You hold these mornings like water. You cup your hands around them. You know they're leaking through your fingers.
You hold them anyway.
The verdict comes on a Tuesday. You are at home. Sofia is at school. Rosa is in the kitchen. The phone rings. 6 years. Reduced for partial cooperation. The cooperation means Enzo gave something. Not everything. Something that was enough to reduce the number, but not enough to prevent it. 6 years in a facility in Lombardy. 6 years of Tuesdays and Sundays and page 8s that he will miss. 6 years of Sofia growing from 4 to 10. From a child who holds her shoes to a child who will learn to read and ride a bicycle and ask questions that get harder to answer with a straight face. 6
years.
You sit on the kitchen floor. Rosa sits next to you. She puts her arm around you. She smells like cleaning products and the bread she was making and something that might be her own grief, because Rosa has been in this house for 11 years, and the man who is going away is the man she cooked for and cleaned for and watched become a father, and she is losing him too. Everyone is losing him. The house is losing him. The lemon tree is losing him. The Fox book is losing him. You visit. The facility is in Lombardy.
Clean.
Structured. The visits are supervised. You and Sofia cross a room and sit at a table, and he is there, and Sofia climbs onto his lap immediately and stays there, and he reads her the Fox book from memory because books aren't allowed, and his voice is the same voice. The soft one. The unhurried one. She falls asleep on page 8 in his arms, and he reads 9 through 20 in a whisper, and you sit across from them, and your vision blurs because your eyes are doing something your brain hasn't authorized. The guard says time. You take Sofia. She stirs. She looks at Enzo and waves with one hand. A small wave. Already turning. Already going back to the car, and the drive, and the life that continues without him in it. You sit in the parking lot for 30 minutes because your hands won't stop. Sofia, at 5, asks why Papa lives at work. You say it's a special project. She says how long. You say a while. She says how long is a while. You say you'll see him every week. She says okay. She says it with a period. Children learn periods from their parents. You taught her that. You keep the house. Rosa stays. Pietro stays. The lemon tree drops fruit in autumn, and you pick it up and make something with it because the tree doesn't know, and the fruit doesn't know, and the kitchen doesn't know, and you are the only thing in this house that knows he's gone and carries it. Your mother calls every Sunday. She doesn't say come home anymore. She says, how are you? She says, how is Sofia? She says, I'm praying. You say thank you. You mean it now in a way you didn't used to. She came to Milan once during the trial. She sat in the courtroom. She watched the proceedings she couldn't understand in a language she doesn't speak, and she watched you sitting in the gallery with your composed face and your still hands, and afterward, she took you to dinner and she said, "You are the strongest person I know, and I wish you didn't have to be." You almost broke. You held the straight face, the face that could survive an earthquake. You held it because if you broke in front of your mother, you would break entirely, and entirely is not available right now. Entirely is for people who can afford to fall apart. You have a daughter and a house and a lemon tree and a man in Lombardy who needs to know that the world he left behind is still standing when he gets back. You write again. Not the book. Something else. Something you can't publish and wouldn't want to. Pages in a notebook that you keep in the nightstand drawer. Letters to Sophia for when she's older. When the straight face has served its purpose and the truth is required. You write about who her father is. Both of him. The man who reads the Fox book and the man who says arithmetic. The man who held her in a hospital and cried, and the man whose cousin's shirt was wrong, and the man who made pasta and told the truth, and the man who erased Luca, and the man who picked up Bruno's grandchild and carried her on his shoulders at the funeral. You write all of it. You write it because someday Sophia will ask, and the answer cannot be simple, because nothing has ever been simple, and pretending otherwise would be the first dishonest thing you've done in a marriage built on the most brutal kind of honesty. Sunday mornings you still wake up early. The house in Magenta is quiet. Rosa doesn't come on Sundays. You make the coffee. You cut the bread. You set out the good butter. Sophia comes downstairs in her pajamas and climbs onto her chair and looks at you with his eyes, that specific dark brown, and she says, "Can we read the Fox book at breakfast?" You say yes. You open the book. You do his voice. You can't do his voice. You try anyway. Your voice cracks on page 6 and Sophia looks up and says, "That's not how Papa does it." And you say, "I know." And she says, "It's okay, Mama." And she puts her hand on yours, and her hand is so small and so sure, and you read page 7 and page 8, and she doesn't fall asleep because it's morning and she's awake, and she's looking at you and she says, "Keep going." You read 9,
10,
11, 12, all the way to 20. You read every page. Not in a whisper, out loud, because the audience is awake and the audience is listening, and the story deserves to be heard. Somewhere in Lombardy, in a room smaller than this kitchen, Enzo is waking up too. You don't know if he's thinking about the Fox book. You don't know if he's thinking about page 8. You don't know if he's thinking about the good butter or the lemon tree, or the way Sophia's hair looks in the morning before anyone brushes it. You think he is. On the refrigerator, held by a magnet Sophia picked from a gift shop in Florence, is a drawing. A house. A lemon tree. 3 people. You asked who the tall one was. She said Papa. You asked who the small one was. She said me. You asked who the medium one was. She said Mama, obviously. You asked why the lemon tree had so many lemons. She said because it's very full. You said how full. She said the most full.
and you both laughed.
You leave the drawing on the refrigerator. You will never take it down. You don't think about why. You know why. The Fox book is on the table. Page 8 is where she sleeps. Pages 9 through 20 are yours to carry. And you carry them. Every night. Every morning. Every Sunday with a good butter and the chair across from you that holds its shape even when it's empty. You chose this. The pasta and the poetry and the blood on the shirt and the monitor on the ankle and the lemon tree and the locked room and the drawing on the fridge. You chose all of it. You chose him. And the him you chose is not one man. He is every man he has ever been. The soft voice and the arithmetic voice. The hands that made pappardelle and the hands that did other things. The father on page 8 and the ghost on pages 9 through 20. You love the pile. All of it. Even the parts that keep you awake at 3 a.m. Even the parts that live in the locked room. Even the parts that have no name in any language you speak. And Milan keeps moving. 9 million people in 9 million private lives. Not one of them required to notice yours. That's the thing about cities this size. There's always room for one more quiet story that nobody finishes reading.